Yo, what's up? This is Shadow Rockin' Pro for one of the Floor Gangs and Knuckleneck Tribe, and you're watching The Trades, the show about breaking, hip hop, and the business of, and of course, the longest running podcast about breaking and hip hop. Well, not hip hop, but breaking. How's everyone doing? This has been a crazy week. Had a really good show. You can check that out right here on the Pro for One channel. I had Cross One. And we talked about the 25th year anniversary of Freestyle Session, and I just had a post with Breakin on my Instagram, and we just did like kind of like the clip of the week, and it was like B-Boy Ivan, and I was like again, Freestyle Session 1997 in San Diego, and of course I'm talking about that because, well, on the show last month, I talked about it was Filipino American History Month. Well, this month, November, it is Hip Hop History Month. And I almost forgot about that. And there's a lot going on actually this month. So, the whole thing is also to kind of talk about hip hop history, right? You know what I mean? And today is a perfect episode to kind of talk about that. But before we get started with that, we got clean house, right? Before I introduce the guest and, have this good convo, get your questions ready for whoever's watching. All right. So, okay. First things first, 65% of you are not subscribed. You guys are watching the content. You guys are almost, you basically, I'm almost at 1,000, right? I need 1,000 subscribers, and I'm like about 15 away, and 4,000 sit hours, and then I can start actually monetizing the channel. And you guys have a lot to do with that. You guys been tuning in. You guys been enjoying the content. But if you guys want to really help out, press the subscribe, press the like, press the bell for notifications, and that way we can upgrade the show, right? We can upgrade the channel. And you guys, like I said, if you guys want more tutorials and stuff like that, I'm gonna bring it to you. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna bring it to you. So, again, 65% of you are watching, but you are not subscribed. Actually, the number is more like 85% of you are watching, and you guys could already help me. But hey, you know what? I'm not gonna force anyone to do anything they don't want to do. All right, now we're giving a shout out to ZenWorld, ZenWorld.com. What's ZenWorld? It is CBD. Now, if you're like myself, who is 47 years old and still is out here in these breaking streets where you're still competing and still trying to compete against like guys like Quiet Storm out there who's literally like 14 or 13, they have an advantage, which I don't. I come from a deficit, which is, well, since I'm 47, I don't heal as fast. So what I need is some type of advantage, and CBD is a good way to have that advantage. CBD is not, even though it's from the cannabis plant, it's not to get you high. Actually, it's proven to help with inflammation and anxiety. So one of the products that they have there at ZenWorld is, of course, the nano drops. You put this in your sports drink, in your coffee, in your water. And again, it helps with inflammation. That's the first thing that happens when you get sick. When you get dehydrated, it's caused by inflammation. And if you don't want to, drink it, right, you could always have the roller. The roller, this acts like an icy hot, right? The CBD freeze acts like an icy hot, but the extra ingredient is CBD, because the icy hot doesn't necessarily put down your inflammation, doesn't calm it down, but CBD does. So the combination is actually great. I love using it. So you get 10% off using the promo code PROFOWON, PROFOWON, at ZenWorld.com, and you get 10% off. Why not save money while you're repairing your muscles? Okay. Now, that being said, oh, wait, one more sponsor, my bad. We got a lot. So another thing is I've been using Step Picks Mat. Let me pull up something from there. Basically, if you're tired of using linoleum, right, you should try a Step Picks Mat, because the whole thing about the Step Picks Mat is that it has a little bit of cushion in there. If you check here, let me pull that up. If you check that out, here's me using it. If you see, this is the Pro Mat. The thing is about the line, and it has a good design too. The thing is about the lino's thinner. This has a little bit of thicker and thicker plastic, and it's smooth. I was able to do windmills shirtless on this. So you can go to the website, go to Step Picks Pro Mat. You can look it up, and you get 15 off with promo code PROFOWON, PROFOWON. I have been using it for a few good months now, and I don't really want to go back to linoleum, to be honest. Because again, you could do like everything. So again, go to stepix.com, go to the Pro Mats, get 15% off with promo code PROFO1. All right. So shout out to Step Picks. All right. With that being said, okay. So I have the other. Oh yeah, let me plug that too. I have the other podcast called Gearheads, the Gearheads Breakcast, and we've been doing a series called Breaking Anthropology, and we had part 1, we had part 2. We had Charlie Rock on. He was actually one of our first guests, Charlie Rock from the Zulu Kings. That was a dope episode. And then we had Little Caesar, so he talked about West Coast history. We had Lino. He talked about East Coast, but more Boston, but his relation to New York and Incredible Breakers and Flow. But then at the same time, he went and Ozrock, which was like surprising because Little Caesar talked about Ozrock. Then Lino talked about Ozrock, and he's like one of the guys that, Ozrock is the one who created Munch Mills, right? Or the baby windmills. And so it was dope to kind of hear about their connection in the 80s. So this being Hip Hop History Month, and as well as that the Red Bull BC1 is happening this weekend in New York, right? The World Finals, right? And it took a few years to bring it back to New York, because the last time it was in New York was 2009. Now we're here 2022, and it's back again in New York. And the thing is, now breaking is bigger than it was that 13 years ago? 12 years ago. So, I've been talking a lot to people about the history. I'm like one of the only ones that are still active in the scene that compete, that talk about the history. And let alone there's a new generation coming in. Like every 3 years there's a new generation. And so old school is starting to become basically 5 years ago. Like that's crazy to me, right? That's crazy to me that old school is 3 years ago for a lot of these kids, and that now that it's about to be in the Olympics, all this stuff is coming out. So without further ado, how I get all this information, right? People are like, man, you know so much. I was like, yeah, I do my homework. But one of the people that, I've definitely reached out to and looked at certain pages, certain information that's been put out was our guest today. And our guest today, representing TBB, the Bronx Breakin' Crew, the Bronx B-Boys, my bad. We got my man, Pluto 7, aka Goonish. How you doing, man?
What's going on, man? How's everybody doing?
There you go, man. We got some people in the chat. If you got any questions, go ahead and ask Pluto. Now the whole thing is about Pluto is that I was aware. I forgot how I even got aware of you, but I think it was the page, and it was because I was doing research myself on Breakin', and there's not a lot out there. Like the biggest thing you had was Fresh as Kids, right? Like that's the only, and that movie came out 2003 now. It's been almost 20 years since that movie came out.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's hard to believe, and they broke down a lot of stuff which I wasn't even aware of, being a West Coast guy, right? I just know my history, right? So for them to break it down even more was dope, because now it's okay, here it's documented. But then after that, it was kind of you have to go to New York, and hopefully you run into an OG that wasn't I was the best and that's it. You know what I mean? So, yo, I made up the knee spin for real. And being from what I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So your page was one of the pages, which I'm about to pull up, right? Your page is one of the pages that kind of helped me. Okay, these are the names I'm hearing over and over again, and there's someone, there's a few names that are doing the research and actually, trying to put this timeline, and this timeline family tree together, right?
Yeah.
And your page was one of the first ones. But before we start that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the break connect clip of the day. And right now, break connect, you could go over there and you could register. And the thing about break connect is that they're offering a new type of technology where you don't have to wait in line and sign up. You could just go and click on it. And so, for instance, this freestyle session that's happening this November in a few weeks, Cross once said it himself, there's no day of signups. You have to sign up a day before. And what you want to do is you want to go to this website, register everything. So for instance, we click on the freestyle session and you register, and you could go in here. So for instance, I'm doing the 4 and up battle, and I would register here, and I put all the stuff here, whatever, whatnot. Ooh, I know who's entering now. I see y'all. Okay, I'm gonna enter. I gotta enter soon. But so you could go to Break Connect and do all that, and not just that, they have a judging system too. It's built into the website. So if you throw events, and this is all connected, and they have already 3,000 people in registry, you could go there and just make your the day easier. So that way you're not waiting all day to register, and you could just go on your day and do your thing. So what we're gonna watch today is the Break Connect clip of the week, and the person we chose is actually, well, who I think we all could say is the bridge, right? Which is Frosty Freeze. Okay, let me pull that up. All right, and we're pulling up Frosty Freeze, the Break Connect clip of the week. Here we go, and boom. Yeah. Ah, classic suicide. All right, there you go. That was the Break Connect clip of the day, clip of the week. All right, let's start with let's start with Frosty, right? So, I mean, obviously in Style Wars, they kind of made fun of him, right? Like said his style was ancient. Like, yeah. You made that up in your mother's kitchen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about you said right before we got to mention Robbie Rob. So yeah. Let's talk about Frosty Freeze was from Manhattan. What's his connection to like the earlier guys, right? So what's his connection?
Okay, Frosty's connection, and which dictates his style, is there's few narratives, and the best ones would be Rock City Crew. That's not okay. Rock Steady, but Rock City Crew, a crew who claims that they were established in 1974 in Harlem by a guy named Charlie Rock.
Not Charlie.
Charlie. And Charlie is aware of it. Like they knew each other. So.
Oh, wow.
This is official. It's not, like a claim, throwing out information or whatnot. So they were based out of Harlem. Frosty was one of the younger members within the crew and everything. And, they did their thing out there in Harlem. And then also, he's also connected with Sundance, who is connected with the Zulus, which actually Sundance is Frosty's cousin. So how Frosty, really got, down, in the Bronx and everything, etc., is through hanging out with his cousin. So he would go to the Bronx and learn that stuff. So while he was learning both, he was learning both styles, whatnot. And, things, as time went, progressed, he picked up stuff back and forth and all those narratives. And later on, what you see later on, the Rocksteady narratives and so forth.
Right.
So his history starts from that, and he learned a very like the style that he learned is between those two narratives. So he has a strong like Zulu narrative, and he has a strong like Rock City Crew narrative. And the
So
interesting,
so
but
so 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 like okay, so that's Manhattan then, right? So because like Young City
Rock
Boys,
City,
right? That's who
yeah,
he was like, kind of like the younger guys, right? Like they all looked
yeah,
at Frosty as that, like that
yeah,
was their connection, right? Frosty was a
mhm,
connection between like Lenny Len and Legs and them and Buck and them, but he was a connection to Doze and Dante and Kenny.
yeah.
That was like the thing, right? So there was a Manhattan style of breaking. Like, would you say that?
Um, I would say Rock City. They were like Zulu masters. In like the first generation of Zulu kings. Like a funk style. They had like it was like slightly different. They were influenced. To like rocking and up rocking and all those narratives.
Right.
So as later on, as time progressed, and Frosty started to go to Bronx River a lot, through his cousin, he started to pick up that style. So
Right.
those styles were very similar, more of the sporadic situation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
That's crazy. So okay, so let's rewind it back a little bit. Let's hear about your history actually. So how did you first where did you first see breaking? How did you start? And like, were you breaking right away when you first seen it?
um, well, I saw it on over here in the tri-state area. I'm out in Jersey, but it's close to the city and everything. Um, I saw it on Channel 7, which is the news, the big news station. And there was just something about it, I just had this strange propensity to see stuff on TV at the right place at the right time.
And this
Um,
is like early 80s, like 1983.
this is, I would say, this is like 82. This is 80.
Okay.
Yeah, this is like about 3 to 4 months in the new year. Um, After I saw that, it was just something that stuck with me, and for almost like a good year or maybe a little over a year, what I saw, I just remembered it, and I just drilled it in my mind. I kept drilling it, I kept drilling it, and I kept drilling it. And by the time that that came about, there were other documentaries and seeing all of that stuff, and I slowly picked up with that. So I would say roughly about a little over a year, I would practice. And back in those times, if you weren't up to par and you couldn't like look good and clean, you didn't go out. Like you didn't let anybody know, or you didn't hit the floor unless you were good enough, because you get smacked up and they say, "Shorty, come back."
Right.
It wasn't a cheerleading situation. So after roughly about a year, I would say on that, I became a b-boy when I came out and I presented it, in my neighborhood out
Crazy.
in '83.
Damn. So okay, so you're like, yeah, you were from that first mainstream wave. Let's say the
Yes,
media,
yes,
the break exploitation
yes.
wave, right?
The exploitation baby of that era.
Yeah, word, word.
We're from the break dance.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So okay, so it died, right? So a lot of people saying for me it died around 85. For a lot of the guys that were like serious practitioners, it seemed like there's this universal 86. For them it was like 1986 they stopped. Was it the same for you?
I would say '86 because
Damn.
I remember the summer of '86, the summer of '86. Before well, actually before the summer of '86, I was still doing my doing the thing, dancing and everything. And I went to for the summer. I stayed with my aunt and my uncle in DC. So I
Mm.
was out in DC. DC was still going on in '86. I came back and it was a culture shock.
Damn. Just
It was a culture shock. Yo, people are like, yo, you still doing that? Like, we ain't doing that, because at the time DC was a little behind.
right,
You
right,
know,
right, right,
they were
right.
a little behind. So out there, having the influence for where I was from, it gave me the opportunity to be a little advanced and do my thing out there or whatever, whatnot. But when I came back, it was a shock, and I think I continued to dance all up, for at least another 6, maybe 8 months, but there was nobody around, so I would just practice at my house.
Right. So after that, okay, so like because now for me on my side, I could fill in kind of that gap from the early '90s. When did you see it come back for you? When did you see it? And you're like, oh shit, it's fully back, like dope, right? You're not going to Latin quarters and doing the hip hop freestyle dancing. You're actually like they're straight up doing top rocking it, straight up top. Because like there's this episode with the Gearheads with Lino where they're doing like a running man to a head spin. And it's just it looks off, but it's like kind of dope because it's like they're wearing the full like polka dot, the polka dot like get ups like Kid and Play or Kwame, but they're doing head spins. It's just really weird. Yeah, and then for him, it was different because when did the straight up the formula came back? The straight up formula, like the top rock and the footwork. For you, when did you first see it coming back?
You know what? Before I answer, a little interesting thing was I remember again seeing it was like a late '86, early '87. I remember watching a special, and they had New York City Breakers, and they were at an art gallery, and they were dancing. And I remember, because they had on the bodysuits. The one piece, classic bodysuits, and they were talking about it, and I was like, "Oh wow, those guys were still doing it." Apparently, they said Rocksteady was still, doing it, roughly until like '87 or whatever. So that narrative was always there. I think that needs to be said. But when I really started to see it come back, I would say like late '90 and '91. When you had narratives of, bums, and like
legs is solo in the end.
Yeah. You had over here Lords of the Underground because about 10 minutes away from where they're from. You had Quicker Legs doing it then, and then you had the grind. Grind, with Rocksteady, had that.
Yeah.
There were clubs, I remember clubs around like 91, 92 that we would go to. And, you would see still people like doing a little something, whenever they threw on Give It Up, Turn It Loose or whatever, whatnot. Because when it died out, I translated, to like, what they call like the hip hop dance styles, like Mop Top styles. I was doing that stuff too.
Right. That's what I started too.
Because I just love dance, and I just didn't want to just, completely stop. But, like what I really wanted to do, breaking, wasn't around.
This is the clip. This is the clip. Yeah. This is the clip, right? From the bums.
The bums. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Dope, man. I'm glad you brought that up. So okay, so you saw it pretty much like when everyone, like when media starts to kind of embrace it a little bit, and then there was like the Rocksteady reunions. That was like kind of like the first thing that was like popping off as far as like an event. Yeah. Not competition, but like the Rocksteady reunion at Rocksteady Park, right? Like that was like one of the first things. Yeah.
And then also a little even before that, the West Coast was still doing it.
Oh yeah.
The West Coast was still doing it. In '87, '88, there were still dudes in the West Coast doing it. And I remember as a kid, like thinking like, because I love to dance so much, I was like, yo, I want to run away and go out to Cali. They still breaking. They're still breaking. Like, yo, they're breaking out in Cali, man. Yo, I'm out. As a little kid, man, and I thought that was dope.
Right.
But there, it's funny, when there's pockets throughout the history of breaking in the States where, they say things die down or stopped. Technically, nothing really stopped. There was like maybe a year and some change layovers, even back in like '79. And then also, like 87 to about 91, it was like a small layover. It wasn't as large and, wasn't as many people doing it, but there were still people actively doing it and still, carrying on the torch before it really started to get big. So I would say by 92, it really was, really, really back over here, with the narratives of what Quick and Kenny were doing. Quick was really out here. Like he was out here hustling. To do a lot of things. Like everybody else, Ghetto Originals. And all of those narratives or whatever, whatnot. Those were going on, and that steamrolled and like the '90s b-boys is what I classify, and over here the '90s b-boys is what I call the rebirth.
Word.
That's what I coined them. I coined the early '90s to like '95 the rebirth generation of breaking.
Word. Yeah.
So if you were to put them in a category and all that, they are the rebirth.
I agree. Yeah. So before we move on to the next question, gotta shout out to K1. He's watching. What up, K? There you go. That's OG right there. That's OG to strive to be.
Oh my God, bro! Like I think there's not too many days that go by where I don't speak with K, man.
Word, yeah.
We talk about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I gotta get him back on here for sure. I had him on like 5 years ago.
That you do.
Yeah, man. Please, yeah, and this time I could like I said, I could pull up clips now instead of just like, okay, I'm talking to you over the phone type shit. So okay, so all right, so you come basically you're like it comes back, you're in it, and everyone's kind of happy, right? Even Lino says it. Oh, it's fully back. We don't have to do anything else. We could just fully just break. What makes you? Because here's the thing: a lot of people from my generation and even after. We're about the breaking part, like, okay, this, and then, right? And it's just regional history. That's it. That's all I care about. It's the best. It's like the nostalgia glasses, right? Like, this is the best because I was 16. Like, for me, out here, nothing can compare back in 92 here, in my opinion, no matter how big it is now. But what made you go, because that's an automatic thing for humans, right? To be kind of like, this is the best time and this is the best style and this is, what it is. What made you want to dig beyond that? That's my question.
You mean as far as like the history?
Yeah. Because a lot of people just care about like, this guy was on my block. He's the best. This is the best style. Who cares? You know what I'm saying? Like, what made you go beyond that human instinct to like, just, I'm satisfied with this, my own history. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I the way I came up in breaking and the way I came up in hip hop culture was you learned this. You didn't just do it. You learned who it was. You learned the history. You wanted to know, you wanted to know as much as possibly could, and a lot of people were like that. But I definitely took it to the next level.
Yes, I agree.
But I have been, doing research since '83. Like, it was synonymous. As I learned how to break, I learned as much as I possibly can about the culture. Those two were hand in hand. I didn't feel like you had to, for me, I had to learn the culture as well as to learn the moves and the steps and all of that stuff. So whatever information I got, I worked with, at that time, I mean, we don't have what we have right now, whatever, whatnot. So whatever I could get my hands on, I would see stuff in the most craziest articles. Like, I remember looking through some of my mom's magazines and finding like the most craziest articles on it. I was like in places. So then I started realizing, you can find this stuff, wherever. And then, I would have like a VCR always on pause because there was always stuff on TV that would just jump off, So, I would tape stuff. So, and then, accumulating stuff and then, research, man. At that time, we didn't have the technology we did, but I retained a lot of that in my mind.
Yeah, I'm the same. But so just to pull up some receipts real quick, I'm gonna pull up this receipt this is how in depth this guy goes. So this is how in depth Pluto goes. Hold on, let me do this little thing. It's hard because I'm like Jamie and Joe Rogan at the same time. So I'm pulling up stuff. Boom. This is a receipt right here. Now I just got turned on to this from like watching you. You've been undefeated in this show called I Am Hip Hop Game Show. where they're like asking questions, random questions about hip hop, and you're kind of like smoking people.
Just want to get to the next questions.
So like
Little Rodney C, KK
So
Rockwell are the original members.
I'm just gonna forward to like the thing, and there's you, man. You're just kind of killing it. So that being said, like I mean, because that's I think the thing is when with hip hop historians, they tend to know only the rap industry stuff, or even just see the underground mixtapes from like the '70s. But now, if you go like, who's Little Caesar, they'll be like, who? You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I tell there are some narratives of like if you're gonna brand whatever you're doing hip hop and you're going to present it to the world, and all you can talk is KRS-One and Rakim, you lost me. Like you got to do better than that, man, because a lot of the '90s journalists were lazy.
Word.
They did lazy work. It's like you see a documentary, it's like, hip hop documentary. Oh, Bambaataa, Kool Herc, Jazzy J, Rocksteady Crew, New York City Breakers, and then that's it. It's like, come on now. And I didn't want to come across that because it's like I don't want to do anything that was already done. Because then there's no point. There's no point in me doing anything if it's not a challenge or if I'm not going to introduce new people. I want to introduce people lesser known, but also had huge contributions. And then also, I can articulate all four elements. I just felt that b-boying and breaking needed the most because when I was looking around, there was not enough documentation, not enough research, not enough coverage of it. So it needed it the most. And as far as I'm concerned in the research that I've done, the definition of this culture beyond any element is breaking more than any element. So people say, well, you say, well, what about writing? And I'm like, well, here's the thing. Writing it all depends on how you look at it. If you come from a certain time frame, you're going to lump writing into, the culture. But if you come before a certain narrative, there are some writers, some of the most famous writers don't even acknowledge writing as specific. So my thing is like, I don't believe it should be an argument. Whatever you believe, it's not right or wrong. It's what, and they're both, and both narratives, make sense. Now, when you get to DJing, a lot of people say, well, DJing is the backbone of hip hop culture. Yes, but guess what, guys? The backbone of hip hop DJs is break culture. Right. Because the fundamentals of breaking, the fundamentals of DJing come from breaking because it was the original Clark Kent who got another cover of Apache, and he decided to surprise Herc at one of his birthday parties that he was DJing. So when you add that double introducing to hip hop culture, and I say introduce because some people have arguments saying, well, other people were doing it, and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, so it's introduced. That's the technicality that gets over a lot of the argument. So when that was introduced, they danced differently. Before that, they were dancing to the whole record. The style danced. They danced differently. They danced more frantic. It was a different energy. They were rocking harder. They were battling harder. So the whole mentality, everything that you see fast forward now is the double of the record. So it will. Then also DJs now. How do they practice? The most basic skills that you practice with is you take two doubles. When you practice your beat juggling, you practice scratching, you get your coordination down. It's the foundation. It's the footwork for a DJ. Then also, what do MCs rhyme over? Two of the same record. Had it not been for the ideology and the narrative of a B-boy, that would this might look a lot different. Because the DJs catered to them, and then some of the greatest battles in the '70s weren't always behind music. So when people say, well, you can't have a b-boy battle without music, that's not true.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Not true, and it still goes on. Exactly. So there's just so like intricate narratives that people like when you break it down, like, oh wow, you know what I mean? Like you may not see it, but when somebody points it out, it's like, that's true.
Yeah, man. That's that you brought up a lot of stuff because like that's the whole thing. Like not everyone's gonna bring a boombox to wherever. But yo, if there's smooth concrete and like yo, let's just get busy. Like a recent that's used to be famous. I would say famous 5 years ago versus now because none of these kids know about it. Is KML versus Jigs on the outside of Out for Fame, like in the snow, like where they're battling. Like there's no music. There's barely clapping. You could just hear the timberlands and the concrete just go. You know what I'm saying? Like
it's like that a lot of times in the wintertime in the city, man. You know, a lot of battles out in the snow.
yeah, man. So that's to me, that's what I'm saying. This is the essence that like obviously it's shifting now. It's shifting, you know what I'm saying? And people are afraid of this new thing that's coming in. And we're gonna talk about that a little bit more, but you know, just to kind of show how I got introduced. I forgot how I got introduced to you, but this was like the page to go to, right? Was the 70s rockin' B-boy history page. And this is where I found out kind of like in-depth information without necessarily talking to somebody. You know what I'm saying? So for instance, what's good about this page on Facebook is you got photos. Like you're actually up here talking to a lot of the peoples from the 70s. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And yo, that's crazy. So what made you want to do kind of like this part, right? So of course you're doing your research for yourself, right? What made you want to start a page and actually start really talking to the people that are part of this culture, you know, that's not documented? What made you want to do that?
So something real quick before I answer that.
Okay.
Next week I will be defending my title and on that. So that's going to be interesting, man. I think
yeah, I'll put that. I'm gonna put that on the community tab. So for those who are subscribed, you can see the community tab. I'm up right when it posts up. I'm gonna post that up.
Yeah, but you know, it's. I had all this information in my head, and I had all this stuff that it's like I need to put this somewhere, man, so my brain doesn't explode. So
right.
I put down, so I had the page. I had been putting information for like 3 years, just
Right.
information, and a whole bunch of information and all that stuff. And then I was getting more information, and then and then I was getting more people, and I was reading more, and then things kept snowballing, into things. And as that occurred, I just started adding stuff, and then I found out, wow, a lot of these people are on Facebook. So I would reach out to a lot of these people, and and for the most part, I got good responses because I learned from watching the way the history is done and how people interact, and I learned a lot of the do's and what to do and what not to do. Be able to get all this information because there's a way you have to go about this to gain people's trust. Because there's variables with that. I mean, you do research with that. So I had all this information, and then one day I just looked at it, I'm like, wow, this is a lot. Like, there's no way. Like, I'm greedy if I just have this shit and just not share it with people. So then I started to share it, and people started to come through and more and more and more. And by the 7th year, I made it public because it was a private page. Because,
I think I remember that.
I did that purposely for no interference because I know if people would have came on and a lot of OGs would keep it real, with interference, and try to say, oh, this is not true and this is not true. And every time they said, they tried to dispel anything I had, I've proven them wrong every time. Undefeated. I'll go on record and I will also say I'm the closest to the beginning narrative and the most accurate stuff. And if anybody wants to battle me for that title, come through.
Right.
I'm the only person who does research who makes a statement like that. Ask anybody. Ask any of these journalists that wrote all these books, or any of these people in the hip hop in the museum, and all those dudes. None of them make that claim.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing because, well, first of all, you're a practitioner, right? And you stay in the scene, right? You stay in the scene because I just saw that you know, because I just started following you on the IG. I was like, oh, you were at Breaking for Gold New York qualifier. You were at these things, so you're like, and then you're in conversations with Dancing Doug and Taekwon and Technique and K1. So you're in it. It's not like you're just like, okay, I'm in it for like right here, and then I'm gonna say my little piece and then go out. No, you're in it. You're in it, and same as me. And that it's unfortunate that's like, you know, like I'm the only other guy from that generation, from the Renegades, Rock Force, Style Elements generation, is actually trying to like do the research too, because I'm trying to understand stuff. I'm trying to learn something old to bring back new. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm all about it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, I felt that, it was like, you know what, I have to share this. And because, and then I was like, you know what, let's see, like if people are interested, they are. If they're not, then, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep doing, because this is something I did for myself. And then I found out there were more people interested, and as, people, OGs were being referred to, and a lot of people were, were sent. And then also my partner in crime, who definitely is up there, Norrin Rad.
Norrin Rad, shout out to Norrin Rad.
Norrin Rad, I was, a matter of fact, I was talking with him last night, and he's a beast, bro. He's a beast. He's a beast, man. If you go onto his page and his blog, oh my God, like, and we share stuff. Sure,
right.
I'll tell him about this, and I'll share a picture with it. He's like, yo, and I'm like, and then he shares with me some stuff, and I'm like, yo, I found this dude. He's like, word, I found this dude, and we share, information. So like when we find people, we share them like, yo, this is what I got. Like it's like, okay, this is what I got. So it's definitely a mutual respect and camaraderie, and we go back and forth and say who's the best or whatnot. But
yeah. So let's go to the chat real quick. Let's see. Stoneski says seeing these two talking to each other is like watching Sean Evans and Nardwar interview each other. Okay. George FDZ says they tend to investigate the same people and leave out many important actors. You're right. And he also says, or they skip years in documentaries. I hate that. Same here. I guess that's why we're here documenting it. Yeah. He also says no more merry-go-round, same break being spun with 2 records. That's good information. Like I'm gonna bring up another name soon, and it might be sensitive. We'll see. How long after the original merry-go-round was created did Clark give to Herc with the double records? Answer that before I go to the next chat.
You know what? That one's a brain fart right now. But here's an educated guess, and if anybody wants, any exact answers, you can reach out to me and I'll get those answers for you. I would say like 76 or 77. And the interesting thing about 77 is like we could do a whole show on 77. I could break down so much stuff about it.
It seems like that's a year, right? Doesn't 77 seem like some crazy year? You know what I'm saying?
The blackout and the significance of the blackout and what it did for hip hop culture. We can thank the blackout. We can thank Con Edison for really, springboarding of so many narratives. But I would say roughly about 76, 77, at a Kool Herc birthday party, he brought that. Don't quote me on it. But if you really want to know the answer, whatnot, I'll go digging for it. And I'll get that answer for you.
All right.
But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So AER says, "Don't leave out the Puerto Ricans." Oh, we're gonna get there. We're not like, hey, I'm up to date about all the politics, bro. So we're warming up. NORAD, yes, sir. Silver Surfer.
Yes, sir. Silver Surfer.
Yeah, George FDZ says, I'm translating his interviews with his permission to Spanish, just in case you want to know. Dope. Oh, fresh. Thank you for translating to Spanish, because I think this is, who's really hungry for this is Latin America right now. South America.
Oh my God.
Dude, they're really hungry for it. It's like everyone asks me, can you translate this to Spanish? I was like, I don't know how to do that. Like a lot of my episodes,
I've been looking for that for my stuff, to translate in, multiple languages. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, I'm going to bring up kind of like the up-to-date politics, which is like, and this is valuable. And here's your, you could say whatever you want to say. Is obviously, it has to be like Michael Wayne TV, right? Like this kind of like he brings up like the thing great about what his channel is like he has dope interviews, right? He has dope interviews. Like I think that I don't even know how I got in contact with Charlie Rock. I don't know if it's through your page or like I forgot. I just found him on Facebook and then he came on like 6 years ago, and you know been friends ever since. And you know what I mean. So it's like it's dope, but with like because now you know you were on that other show the other week and he talked about Mike G from Chuck City, and I was like, yo, you know, because they talk in that clip I remade. He talks about Beaver, like yeah, we kind of he's like influenced by us, but then he took our shit to the next level, and he was a baby Zulu, and then he was like the connection to like a Wiggles, right? Like you know what I mean. They all talked about Beaver and stuff.
So we'll be hearing more about. There'll be more footage on Beaver coming soon.
Oh shit. Here we go. So obviously, and then recently, and this is a conversation that keeps coming back for whatever reason, is the foundational Black Americans, right? Which is like Lord Jamal, for some reason, he always re-sparks it somehow re-sparks. But what is funny, before we get into that discussion, but what's funny is that Eminem, who just got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you're the first rapper to like just go, here's my list. It's not really it's not really like who to thank, but it's like alphabetical order, everyone that came before him. Even Lord Jamar, who he had like beef with, he still mentioned them.
Yeah, beef with House of Pain also.
Right. And he still was like,
the name's there. Out. You know, yeah, he shouted out like maybe 3 or 4 people he had beef with, you know. I mean, but that's what it is, you know. There's some people, you know, that, you know, I mean, I might have had like issues with or whatever, whatnot in this culture, but I respect what they did, and you know, I would never negate them. And if I'm going to tell the history, honestly, I can't, you know, I don't speak in my emotion. My emotion does not exist when it comes to putting this stuff out. I have no alliances when it comes to this. You know, I'm not doing this for anything other than the truth. You know, I'm all about the truth, and that's it. That's the only thing that matters. You know, and then you got guys like Michael Wayne, you know, who I feel are doing things, you know, for likes, you know, and subscriptions. You know.
Okay. Because obviously, like, you know, we've only heard of like, you know, because he had some stuff with Coke Rock, which is dope. Because like no one like right now he's getting his flowers, right? If he never got his flowers before, he's getting his flowers now, right? Because you even had DJ Vlad actually interview him now, and then you know he's mentioning Sasa and Trixie, and Michael Wayne goes out there. Okay, I'm gonna talk to them. I'm gonna interview them right now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think that's dope. So, but the whole thing is like, you know, you were on the show, and now you know bringing up AERs, like adding the Puerto Ricans. Let's talk about the styles. Let's really talk about, you know, what they quote unquote Moreno style and the Puerto Rican style. Let's talk about that lineage, right? So let's start from the Dancing Doug, the Clark Kent, the Sasa, the Trixie, which quote unquote A1 B-boy or boyoing, right? The boyoing guys, right? How would you talk about that style? Is it closer to like what Frosty did? Like if we could kind of imagine it, right?
Okay. One of the I would say you know, burning, you know, is kind of like, you know, rocking on top.
But not is it not the same time? Not the same thing as jerks and burns. Just burning. Just
it just burns. There's really not a lot of jerks, you know,
right.
and you know, and a lot of the stuff, you know, like when you see the footage of Style Wars when they were you know, when Frosty was talking about up rocking and you know how they were trying to, you know, make each other look bad when they were on top. You know what clip I'm talking about? Like when they were at the roller skating rink when Dynamic battled Rocksteady and stuff.
Right.
There's that. Now, so burning, you know, that's kind of like what burning is, you know, but there was a little more movement. It wasn't so like stationary. There's a little more movement. Another person who you could say, you know, has his own unique style, but you know, you can kind of get like an idea. Would be a good, you know, educated example would be Pee-wee Dance.
Word. Okay, you bring up Pee-wee Dance, yeah.
Pee-wee's Dance, he comes from that era, you know, and he, you know, in the 90s, he was running with Rocksteady and all of that stuff, whatever, whatnot. And he, you know, like that style, you know, is a good example. You know, even though he's very original on his style, because you know if we really look at that, we could break down, you know.
Yeah, let's do it right here. It's right here.
Okay,
Boom.
So this right here, you know, like his transitions, like right over there, you know, up rock, top rock, you know, up rock, top rock style, and you know, with a little bit of like the burning flavor. You know what I mean? You know, it's very b-boy posing esque. You know, the hops, you know, because at that time, you know, there was a lot of hops. The original tops were like hops. You know what I mean? You know, you could categorize him as a, you know, a top rock master. You know, you know, it's like for DJs, you know, like, you know, in the 90s, you know, they were saying all this stuff about Hubert and all these guys. All they can do is scratch, you know, they can't rock a party and all this stuff, whatever, whatnot. But they emphasized an element and really took it to the next level. That's the same thing with Pee Wee. Pee Wee, you know, is just like, you know, he just has that, like, that flavor and that style. You know what I mean? He's accentuating really one aspect of the dance. It's really no different, you know, than somebody who just does Air Flare 90. No, nobody, you know, negated what that looked like and never questioned what that was, you know, even though everybody had a personal reservation. So, you know, someone like this, you know, when they say, you know, the first generation guys may not necessarily been B-boys, you know, and that, you know, everybody can come up to, you know, their own opinion. But one thing I will say is they were the influence, the precursors to what later, you know, because there's like the Moreno style. There's three kind of narratives in that, and that's Trixie and Salsa, and then, you know, later on Charlie and those dudes, which is Zulu Master, and then later on you have the you know the Zulus. Now the Zulus after like Charlie. But the interesting thing about that is like you have what do you call, you got Pow Wow, who taught Little Boy Keith, but he's older. Little Boy Keith was a baby Zulu, but he taught him and he learned certain styles, which later came, you know, closer to what we know it is, you know, now, or what, you know, the perception of what it is now. So you have people who actually translated things. Pow Wow was a dude that translated a lot of that stuff. You know, he taught leg stuff. I had information on that 70s page where, you know, when they did the Tribe Called Quest, you know, that's his teacher. You know, for those who don't know, that's his teacher. Him and a brother named Marcus, who recently passed away. I just found out. Marcus, those two guys was little Boy Keith's teacher. So that's his teacher looking at, you know, and Mr. Biggs. People said Mr. Biggs got down, you know. So and then if you listen to that clip, you know, if you listen to the original clip, you know, from that documentary, he was like, you know, back then it was all about b-boying, but now it's all about party shock and rocking the party. You know, he says that if you have a sharp ear, you'll hear him talk about, you know, that's the stuff we used to do back in the day. This is what it's about now. And that video clip, if I'm not mistaken, is like 83.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so you have, you know, so you have the, you know, the A1s, you know, which is, you know, Salsa, Trixie, Doug, and all those guys, you know, and then so I have to interject are the twins. Now the twins was when things started to go down. So the first narratives of going down more. All those guys, you know, they would have done drops and all that stuff like funk styles that you see on Soul Train and whatnot. But the twins are the ones that started to go down more. So you started to create, you know, in the Black community, the style of dance of them going down more. And excuse me, as you know, again, you know, you got Pow Wow and Marcus, you know, those guys from Zulu, and then, you know, you had the baby Zulus. Now the baby Zulus is what really, you know, like started, you know, like the big conflict between, you know, baby Zulus versus, you know, some of the other, you know, for some of the other crews like the Disco Kings and guys like that who battled against, you know, Beaver and all those guys. Beaver was at the time, Beaver was the president of the baby of the baby Zulus.
Right.
And Keith was one of those guys or whatnot. And then there was another crew by, you know, Lightning Lance and Green Eyed Genie, who are on Facebook, you know, they're DJs now. They were in a crew called Shaka Zulus.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, they call them Shaka Zulus, but they don't. The president, Shaheen said it wasn't Shaka Zulu Kings. They just called themselves Shaka Zulus, and they were the biggest rivalry in Bronx River to the Kings. From like the powwow era, and and Charlie Rock. Charlie Rock knows them. Charlie could definitely reiterate, and I have information with some of the pictures of those guys and some of the stories on that page also as well.
Speaking of Charlie Rock, let's pull up a clip real quick, and this is a real fast, again from the Michael Wayne joint, but real fast of him doing a cross step, and what I mean, where he's talking about, they're rocking, boom. So the way he's even doing a cross step is like, you know what I mean? Like that right there was like an indication of how they did it versus like what we're used to seeing, right? Which is like, what we're used to seeing, like someone like Kenny Legs or Buck Four or Doze, you know what I mean? Like it's like it has a different type of like maybe cadence or a little different type of bounce, maybe closer. So that's like the precursor of what we're saying. Like that's why when I brought Frosty's first clip, the bridge, because they were still like the bridge from that era to like this new era.
Influence is definitely I would say is a baby Zulu narrative. And he has narratives of of a little before that because of the crew that he first was in or whatever or not. So he picked up a lot of that stuff. But Frosty, he was a wealth of knowledge, man. Like Frost, I was fortunate enough to to see the battle between New York City Breakers versus Rocksteady, the black and white footage that you always see in documentaries.
Yeah.
I saw the entirety of that, man. And I was like, Frosty, man, like how many people have this stuff? He was like maybe Legs and Henry. That's about it.
Henry, and he's talking about Henry Chalfant, obviously, right? Like,
and the sad part is, a lot of that stuff he lost. Like Frosty was an encyclopedia.
Yeah, he was, man.
He knew about TBB. He knew about these other, and all that stuff. There's some rare clips of him that I have on the page there. That talk about that.
Okay, so in my theories, these are my theories. Maybe you could confirm it or add on to the theory. Would you say the original like African American b-boys, right? Like your Dancing Ducks, going down to the Baby Zulus because that was the last one to kind of like go into the Pee Wee dance and Frosty Freeze. Would you say that they were more flat-footed, more sporadic, like you said, and it was the Latinos that started to kind of go ball on their feet, more technical, like because you heard Mike G talk about what Beaver did when we did a helicopter or a sweep. Beaver did reverse, and we kind of copied him. Yeah. When did that start happening, as you would say, is a narrative of just like the techniques of a salsa step, of a quote unquote six step with Shorty Rock, right, from CC Crew? Like, was that the main differences of the definition of giving moves? Is that the thing that the Latino b-boys and b-girls added to Breakin?
Well, the influence of their culture, salsa and merengue, and the outlaw dance and their narrative and those narratives influence greatly to their style, and you can see it within the dance, and it comes, it gives all of that flavor. And just they had like their own level of sporadicness, but since they were just so move based heavy in their their influence, that became the foundation. It's just like if it's like you have one dude who does the Running Man and then the Harlem Shake. The Running Man has more text. To paraphrase but quote Fable, when a dance doesn't have a lot of vocabulary, it doesn't have a staying power. So with being sporadic, that style like wasn't done as much, right? But it influenced the next era that that was about to come on, because for instance, the Spy, he invented swipes.
Word.
Swipes wasn't meant for everybody to do.
Right. So it was just something he did.
Yeah. So when people talk about biting, you have to understand, the whole biting thing, that's a whole other story. But swipes was his secret drop / go down that only he did. as time progressed, like anything, especially from the 70s, these moves, stretched out. You have Robbie Rob from Zulus. He created the chair freeze.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that real quick. Let's talk about that real quick.
So Robbie Rob, to me, and based off of my research, I would categorize him as the godfather of air and power moves.
Okay.
Because that one move, you have the continuous backspin, you have floats. All of these things come from that. From that one move, that is the godfather to all of these moves that later came on. And then you have things like flares and all that stuff. That's more of a gymnastics thing.
Right.
But then you have neck moves, which later some people call tracks, air tracks, and all that stuff. That all comes from the foundation of the chair freeze.
And have you heard how he came up with that move, like the chair freeze? How he came up with it, or like it was just something he did and everyone else did? Like,
I've been looking forever to get a hold of him, and the craziest thing was I was at a Rocksteady out here in Jersey one time, and there's a picture of him, Fever, I think Legs, Trace, and Track with Robbie Rob, and they're all taking a picture. And I'm like, damn, man, I was at that Rocksteady. If I had known, it just slipped through my hands. I just found out last night that he passed away recently.
Oh, damn! Recent too. Damn.
Yeah, and I was really trying real hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, dude. So this is chair is basically so this turned into the turtle or float. This turned into this was like
conditioning. It's a conditioning thing. It's also how Legs create the third generation batsman, which he called the continuous batsman by messing up. I think he said he was in a baby or a chair. Baby chair. You have the chair and then you have the baby. And then all of that stuff comes from all of that stuff.
So the chair came before the baby.
Yes.
Damn. All right. Makes sense though, right? Because they're in motion, right? If you're trying to catch it, you're trying to within motion and stuff like that. That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
And it might have been, it might have been one of those things where I still, this is one of my, I have a thing, I have a list of things, to confirm, but I'll share this. I think the baby came later because there was a guy named Mongo. Mongo, yeah. He used to do those moves side to side. He was one of the first dudes to do them left to right as a combo. You know what I mean? So that's like a confirmation of the next level or the beginning of what the new stuff. So so the Puerto Rican brothers, they added a lot of text into what we consider moves, all of the foundation moves and all of that stuff, whatnot. But and that, I would say that's around 77.
Okay, again 77. Again 77.
77, 78 or whatnot. But but also at the same time, the Zulus were still out there. They were still, doing their thing, all the way up to 78, 79. They were still getting down, according to one of the brothers from the Disco Kings.
Word. Wow. That's crazy, man. I had a question and I just was listening. I was like, holy shit, that's insane. So, dude, no, but it's dope though. So, okay. So this is what I was gonna say. So would you say, and this is a theory of mine, and maybe because this is honestly, man, no one knows that even though I've caught up with you, this is actually our first conversation. This is actually our very first conversation. Yeah, even though we were online.
Yeah, but
this is our first comment. So I got a million questions. So, and maybe you could, being a TBB member, maybe you could confirm this or not. Was it more okay, so maybe Shorty Rock, he did a 6-step. Then this guy, Abby, does or Batch does a 4-step. Was Spy called the man with 1,000 moves because he was the one to really do combinations of each person and just was able to like, yo, I have everything, all the moves that you guys have. Was that the reason he was called the man with 1,000 moves? From what you gather?
I'll just say this: there are some people who battled him and will dispel that.
Oh shit!
They said but they won't take it away. They'll say he was dope. Trace 2 of TBB battled him and said he was dope, but 1,000 moves. He was like, that was a little out there. Willie Will, who's still alive on Facebook, he battled him and beat him. Okay. He said he was dope, but I don't think he would agree with 1,000 moves because he did beat him. You know what I mean? He did beat him. So and everybody says he was dope. He was really, really, really dope. But I think the power of media really created a higher level of folklore. And it's not that he didn't deserve like the rep that he got, according to people that I've spoken to who personally knew him or battled him, etc. But he was good, but 1,000 moves. I mean,
I was like just my imagination. Why? Because even back then, like when I started dancing, like because we were the reset, what the rebirth, right? We were because like we didn't know when we came back in '91, right, in the West Coast, we didn't know that Sidewalk Breakers in '85 was already doing Flare 90. We didn't know that Float was already like this next level of power moves. We didn't know that, and we didn't know about Germany. So it was literally the only thing we had was Beat Street, right? Beat Street, Style Wars, Vault Style. That's it, right? And maybe some clips from the pilot TV show that Ozrock was in, and commercials. Like there's this mixtape, right, of commercials with like Mountain Dew and freaking Fred Flintstone, right? That's so it was a reset. It was a reset. So there was always that. We had a guy in a crew that was really good at windmills. Then we had another guy in the crew that was really good at headspins. Then we had then we had a popper. So no one was like this one-man army thing. Was it like that from what you're hearing back in the day too? Like in the Salso, CC Crew, TBB? Was it like?
Well, you know what? Yes, some people were like that, and then some people just had a lot with them. There were some people, they were talking about, they had a lot with them. Like for instance, they said Spy, he had a lot of, footwork. He was very clean. He had a lot of stuff with them. Just CC Crew, man. CC Crew is responsible. That crew is responsible for swipes, 4-step, and like two other moves that I can't. One of the first and second generation backspin, which was by JoJo. JoJo's accredited with that. He did the first and the second, and then Legs did the third. Continuous backspin. Later, windmills.
We even use it for, even though like Kenny calls them switches, right? Legs calls them Russian taps, but we call it a CC for a reason. It's because of Crazy Commanders, right? Like,
and then also the CC. Yeah, that's another thing. The CC, the 6-step CC move. Most people use it to open up the circle, right?
Right.
I don't know. Have you heard that? Have you ever heard that?
No.
Okay. Most people back in the day when circles would get tight, that was a technique they used to open up circles. This is like more of a late 70s, early 80s thing. But CC Crew created that. But what it was is, since it's harder to do that, it was actually a training drill for the regular footwork. So a lot of people don't realize, like when you do that kind of 6-step, you're actually doing a training drill.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like no one had these names yet. We just know. Yeah. 6-step was like new. It's like 90s term because they started teaching. So when Shorty Rock did, that was just Shorty Rock's clockwork footwork, or that's just Shorty Rock's move at that point.
The names were very vague. Like neck moves. Which which later became tracks and all that stuff. came later on,
Right.
and there's and then there's then there's generations of a name of a move that was called one thing in the 70s, translated into the 80s and in the 90s and all that stuff. But it's all similar names, you know what I mean? But there's
Right.
and then okay, you're over here on the West. The West calls it something different because
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
they call it this. In Jersey they called it this. In Philly they called it this. Connecticut, you know what I mean? So
Yeah. Nah.
and I think that's something to one day address. Like how do we get all that collectively and see where we come
Right.
up. Because when you do that, you come up with interesting information. You get like side stories that adds on.
Yeah, no, that's real, man. That's real because and let alone we're probably one of the only ones talking this far back, being even our age, right? Like I'm late 40s, right? I'm assuming you're late 40s too.
Yeah.
Let alone people that are like late 30s, mid 30s. Forget about early 30s. That's already like 1997 is 25 years away for them. They were literally 5. Like you know what I mean? Like so this is.
And then also another thing, when we were like touching on the some of the 80s stuff, I just have to say this real quick for anybody out there. Go and if you want to research somebody who was like next level, who said, they were like up there with like Float and like Evo level, is a dude named German.
Yeah, dude, watch that Lino interview. He talks about German and Orko battling.
Ooh.
So watch that on the Gearheads channel. Lino talks about like Orko and German battling. Because that name was thrown a lot. You already know, man. Me, I'm always asking questions. I've heard that name German. When I went to Germany, they talked about German. You know what I mean? When I talk to like old school dudes, they talk about German. I'm like, who the fuck is German? You know what I mean? Like so.
Yeah. Oh, and also, I don't know if you saw it. I put it on the 70s page in my old Pluto 7 lineage Instagram page. I put some interesting information on the Mexican crew.
Word, yeah, and yeah. The first time I heard Breakbeat Lou, when I interviewed Breakbeat Lou, it was like, I heard the Mexican, and actually, I saw that one of the pictures of the Mexican crew.
Wanda.
Word, yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Wanda was their president, and they were like an interesting bunch. Even Abby has a story about. He's gonna kill me for this, but Abby has a story about that. Where he had a little conflict with Wanda.
Word. Shout out to Abby, man. So like, all right, we're hour 30 in. So where's this all going? So I've heard mentioned that there's gonna be a documentary. So let's talk about this. Like, so this is for me, like I'm doing it my own way, right? I'm doing it through interviews. Like, let me document all these interviews now as I can, just like you. But for me, I'm not good at writing, so it's like I'd rather do it in camera, obviously, right? And it's easier for me than writing.
We need variety to show that there is interest in this. There is a narrative, So when we look back, or people look back, when the next generation comes up and it's like, we have history and a narrative, and some corporation doesn't come and like says, well, here are your heroes. Here are the guys who created, I'm not with that. You know what I mean? Like we need, that to be laid down, and the importance of that, because all the stuff that Wiley kids are having fun now, just remember they can forget about all of you guys.
Yeah, that's real.
That's not exactly that's nothing like how it went. So we have to be mindful of this, because everybody is an ambassador to this culture outside the culture. When you're out there hitting, when you're out there at a jam, when you're out there doing an interview, when you're out there doing a show, you have to have your own personal value, and you also have to have the value of the culture, and keep those things in mind in order for us to progress. You want to create a narrative where they come to us.
100. Yo, 100. Yo, this is why I always did on Facebook, but again, and I did on IG for a year before COVID. But this is, to me, like, you could pull this up. YouTube is like, everyone goes to YouTube. And I know that's, for me, it's not about the views. It's like, I got to get this interview now. You know what I mean? Let me fucking get it down before, before what you just said. Nike comes in and is like, guess what? Vicious Victor made up Breaking. Like, no, he didn't. Like, he's only like, he's not even 30. Like,
Real important, especially the narratives that are going in the next 2 years. You know, we got things going to the museum, and then we also have the you know the Olympics, and then also the touch on the documentary. The documentary, talking with Doug, he stated last night that the documentary will be out no later than August, for the 50th. So between no later than August. So it could be anywhere between now and August.
Right.
That documentary was going to come out. And it was one of those things that I had posted up on the 70s page that this is information that will be the lexicon to the possibility of a documentary. Whoever could step up, whether I was able to do it or whether somebody else would come in and do that. He stepped up and started putting it together. And
is he working with Nemesis? Is that who he's working with? This is on his own.
Pretty much on his own, whatever. He's picking up, and a lot of people are showing support. So originally it was supposed to be just about the 70s, but then he got gung ho and it just translated. So now it's all the eras from the 70s up to now. Wow. So he got a lot of people from various generations, all the generations. He went to freestyle sessions. He went to events down in Florida, Atlanta, and
Oh, dope. Damn, I think was he at the freestyle session where K1 judged?
He was at that
one. Where Jimmy was there? And oh man. And Track, I saw them all talking. I just was like, I was competing, so I was just like in my own world, but I just remember that circle. They were just like talking. I was like, fuck. But I got focused in. Yeah. So let's talk about I'm bringing up this. So Dancing Doug has something going on this Thursday, this Thursday?
That is this Thursday.
Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit. What do you know? So what's the information about the Breaking Hall of Fame? Because I think it's dope, and I think one of the reasons I wanted to have you because, like, and this I'm not trying to take a jab at the OGs, but there is like someone like me is gonna nerd about it, but I want people that are under me to be excited about this shit and go and check it out. Especially that's the Red Bull, World Final week, right? And it's the Hip Hop History Month. November's hip hop. So let's talk about this real quick. So to give a shout out to Doug.
Yeah, shout out to Dancing Doug for putting this together. It's something that recognizes the contributions of B-boys. We felt needed a Hall of Fame. There's a graffiti Hall of Fame. MCs have a whole bunch of narratives. There's certain narratives within DJing. So it's only right to have a Breaking. It's just like how I looked at all this history. I got tired of seeing something that wasn't there. So instead of complaining about it, he did it. Did something about it. So that's what Doug did for the Hall of Fame, and it recognizes dancers from all the eras. You know what I mean? It's not just one era. It's people from other countries, and and all of that stuff. People who've done things. So and then
that's dope. I mean, I never heard that. I never heard like because he said I remember I just saw your IG with when you're talking to him, and he's 65, right? Like, dude, I've never heard of someone. Then he started mentioning like Incredible. I was like, wait, he knows about Incredible? Like, you know what I mean? Because like, if I ask a lot of people, like the OGs, they're like,
He leveled up. He really, as we introduced them, we started to introduce a lot of them, to what came behind them and what's currently going on and in the 90s and all that stuff. So and we're making a governing board of a bunch of people, from different eras, to say, okay, this is the person that's up for nomination or whatnot. This is who, who's going to be up for things. This is the second year that, is celebrating it. So
that's man, I don't care about going to Red Bull, but I care about going to that. Like, no diss to Red Bull, but to me that's exciting because it's like
we're going to try to get, some of it shown live. We're going to try to get that live and, for people, to see what's going on or whatnot. So yeah, and that's one of the things. They're going to be, people of nomination. There've been people, already, thinking about next year's, and people of interest, from different countries, and
Bro, I mean, you know me, man. Like I said, it's a shame that like I said, like I'm only like there's only like what 10, maybe 15 podcasts in the world around breaking, let alone consistent, and let alone that will do the research, that will dig deep before like addressing. That's why it's like I always tell my partner, the J Soul and Gearheads breakcast, I'm like, we need to cover all this before we start talking about now. You know what I mean? Like, not everyone talks about now. That's not a problem.
And
you know what I mean?
I felt the need to do this or whatever, not because a lot of people are like, "Yo, you need to do the '80s. You need to do the '80s." So I told a few people who were, really touching on the '80s. I told them, like, do it now, because once I come in after the '80s, man, I'm going in, man. I'm going in, and my thing is just like I'm not going to do it from the perspective of I'm not going to do anything like everyone else does. I'm going to try, and it's not me trying to be so hardcore and be original and separate myself. No, it's just certain things that I see that don't exist, and certain narratives, that need to be exploited and need to be shown, and I think that's what, adds to this history, because it's like there's so many things, to this history. Like I before I lost my page, the 70s page, I had another filter page of just almost as much information that, that I needed to fact check, before I dropped it,
right.
Of information. So there's always going to be a whole bunch of information. And, I just always keep my ears out, for stuff, just like, last night, all the stuff, that just fell into my lap, and I'm like, oh man.
I mean, you're in the vortex, bro. I mean, come on, Rebel Week, like, dude, come on. Everyone's gonna like more than 2009. Now that there's social media, now that they've seen Charlie and Fuji and like everyone coming out, yo, it's on. Everyone's gonna want that, part. And once the Olympics happens, like, forget about it, bro.
We got the 50th, we got the 50th. It's like, what is everybody going to do for the 50th to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the culture or whatnot?
Right.
People don't realize it was b-boy and culture that made it 50.
Right.
It wasn't the rappers. You know what I mean?
No.
It wasn't the commercial record companies and all that stuff. It was b-boy and culture. Because Herc was playing to the b-boys,
right.
And that's what we have to understand. The beginning of this, the most prominent thing that started this was the b-boys.
Yeah, from what everyone's, all, just like, I think you and me are very similar. We watch all the interviews to see this underlining theme. That, you know what I mean? Some might say this and some might say that, but there is this little thing that they all agree, and it seems like that's the main thing, right? Is that breaking was the thing that actually pushed the whole hip hop movement. You know what I mean?
And in the '80s, and like all the way up until like '85, between like '80 and '85, like Homeboy said, in Fresh as Kids. Well, you remember, do you remember, you know what rap is now, but do you know what breaking is? Everybody knew. Everybody knew what breaking was, and that was the most prominent thing, and everything else came suit and came after it. And it was hip hop culture with, like, you take away breaking, and I don't think hip hop would have been global.
Yeah, I don't think so either, because it was the visual that didn't have to have an English language. It was just visceral. I mean,
visual in the music. That's it.
Yeah. So, like you said, sometimes not the music. You see a guy on the concrete just getting down, you're like, oh shit, damn, what the hell? Like, you don't even have to listen to hip hop. You're just, but preferably, but it's just still like, damn.
So the culture, the culture needs to pay homage and recognize and really, give thanks to all of that stuff. Because, like I said all the time, if it wasn't for like a Trap, a JoJo, a Abby, a Batch, a Trace, or a Rockwell Association, there would be no Rakim.
Yeah, word. That's deep. That's deep. That's what I'm saying, man. And like I said, dude, like, it's good that we're having this conversation. It's good we're putting out there, because, again, like, I think like I said, like late 40s, like I said, people that are 30 don't even know half of this stuff. Again, old school to them is like freestyle session, which is like we haven't even gotten to 97 yet. We're still like we're trying to make our way up to 83, right? Like we're still trying to make our way up, you know what I mean? With so much information. And I think stuff like this is needed. You're definitely needed, and I could say you're doing the God's work, bro, because you're helping me out. Because in arguments, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like your old school is Beat Street. And I'm telling you, the guys that taught we're talking about that lineage from like, the Floor Master 7 Deadly Sins becoming New York City Breakers is like, who's that?
Yeah.
Don't give me like, who's that? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
and that's what I say, when I get in conversations about hip hop, I'm like, you're talking about rap. I'm talking about hip hop. And they're like, huh? And I'm like, never mind. Because there's no point of, like, talking, because there are just some narratives in this culture. There's a lot of people who are talking so much about the history of this. They don't know anything.
Yeah.
They're not qualified to sit in front, and speak about this, because they've acquired the knowledge or they have a general interest. They just want to speak from their emotion. Again, speaking from emotion does not get you to win over or to prove facts. Emotion doesn't prove facts. It just,
It's the nostalgia glasses, bro. It's the nostalgia, like what it made me feel. It's a loyalty to this comfort food that, in my area. Like I said, if I would have just done that, then Elmer from Fairfield would be the best and I wouldn't know anything else better. That's just like saying, oh, I used to break dance in 85. Remember that? Like, dude, that was the best. Like, no, it wasn't. Like, that's crazy, man. But yo, it's been almost an hour and a half, man. And yo, dude, we're about to sign off. Man, this has been dope. We gotta definitely do it again. We're definitely doing this again. I'm
always ready, man. Like Kate says, stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
There you go, man. So is this where they can find you? And
yes, you can find me there, or you can find me Pluto 7. There's like 3 of them because I've been hacked like 4 times. Yeah, these guys out here, they're special. But when you see the cover, it's me on the game show. So that's the current one. So when you tap
okay,
on the Pluto,
the one I pulled up that's not it no more. That one, the one from Facebook.
I don't remember.
Here, let me pull it up right now, and you can tell me if I should go there, and if not, I'll pull up a different thing. Right here, this one. This one's good. Is this one still good, or you got a new one?
No, that page. Since I've been hacked, I'm locked out of that page.
Okay, so you have another one on Facebook though.
And I'm locked out of that one also.
So where can we look for some of this?
So stuff? you can go to the homage page. That's the new
okay
platform I'm going, and then also I will be returning with a strictly 70s page. I'm going to do another one. Give me a while because there's a lot of information. It's going to take a lot.
Bro, yeah. So even though we can't go on that, even though you're locked out of that page, we could still like kind of look at it. There's still pictures. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You could still go. You could still go onto my Pluto 7 Goonage on Instagram and the 70s page, which is pretty much the same thing. You could still go on there, and if you need the reference or if you want to learn any information, you can go onto that page and read, see the pictures or read the pictures. And people ask me, can you make copies and all that? By all means, spread it out through the world, man. I'm here to share.
There you go. Yeah, man. Well, cool, bro. Like this has been dope. Before we sign out, let's look at the chat. Josh says, y'all need more of this. I'm watching Scholars and loving it. Corey says, B-boys put that battery in the back of the culture. Did we go? Stony says, if Pluto is a firekeeper, Profo's a torchbearer. Hey, you ain't wrong. You never lie. Corey says, thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
George says, thanks. K1, they're telling me my post was too long. Damn, really? I gotta have you on, Kay. I gotta have you on again. This time I can pull up footage. It's not gonna be my talking head no more. Like,
let me know you do, Kay, man, because man, K's somebody who deserves, like, there are people who deserve flowers. K deserves a garden or a
100. Okay, and this is what I was about to say too, is that there's plenty of OGs that are cool, but K, he's an OG. Why I'm surprised at Dancing Doug is because if I ask any OG, I'm not gonna say their names. If like, do you know this guy in Belgium? This one guy named Rob. He's like, who? Maybe. If I ask him, oh, that guy is like, blah. I was like, this is what I'm talking. We need more OGs that participate and go and chill and don't need to have to like, oh, I'm OG such and such, treat me in this way, or else I won't go. K will go put his money down, go to the gym, buy every vendor's product just to support and fucking take, dude.
Real. I was hanging out with K last year out in Texas, man. And man, we got a chance to just sit around and just drink beers and just chill and just laugh about a whole bunch of stuff and like, it's not even just Breakin, man. It's more than that. It's more than that. That's when an OG is real. When they will spend the time and come see you and hang out with you, and you guys just have a good time, just kicking, and talk about, like me and Kay, we always talking about like hip hop gear. That's an interesting conversation. We talk about like kicks and old school bomber jackets and what our families did and workout regiments and all that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, he's big. I mean, I'm an example of K's workout. Like, jump rope pro, you better jump rope. I'm like, oh, and I was about it. And just before we sign out too, like they opened a Bruce Lee museum here. And I remember the first person I sent pictures of that inside that man's museum was K. Like, okay, check this out.
You got to.
You know what I'm saying? Yo, man, thank you so much for being on. This is so dope. Again, this Thursday, if you could go to the Breaking Hall of Fame, you're gonna be out there, right? I'm gonna plug Doug and Pluto and just go up to Pluto and say, hey, I saw you on the trades. You know what I'm saying? Like, lace me with some info or, say hi, head out there, you know what I mean? Because, like, especially if you're in the New York area, you should be going to this. Like, Red Bull BC one's important. All the competitions are important, but know where you're from. And I think this is a good place to start if you're starting.
And it doesn't interfere with the, like the battles and all that stuff. So
yeah.
It doesn't interfere with the battles because the battles are like, when is it? Friday and Saturday. Sunday.
I think they got the camp too, but this is, again, if you just want to chill and meet people and have conversation, dude, might as well. You might as well. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, bro. Appreciate you for being on. Again, reach out to Pluto. He's at homage.crew, KRU. And this has been The Trades with Pluto 7, Breakin historian from TBB. Peace. And see y'all later.
Peace, everyone.